Hey, all right. Frog. Hey, all right. That should be Kermit. Hey, all right, guys. Um, let's have a look at some more camera attributes and how you might see them working for you in a different way. The camera is quite extensive as far as what it can do and how it behaves in a world. And if you have any experience with cinegraphic, cinematographic, cinema cameras, you'll start to see that there's a real likeness about its capabilities as dealing with different lenses, focal lengths, and behaviors that seem really quite real. The people who engineered the background for this software are are superheroes, and they were able to try to take something that happens in the real organic world and reinterpret it in a digital environment based on, not really too many attributes and parameters. So what I want to do is I just want to kind of pick up where we left off with this shot here and have a look at a secondary camera where we get into a few other options. So the old camera is in here, and I guess what I should do is just do a quick save and make this be intro. 3D intro, camera 1. Not under the Rainier music video that I made recently. No. And then I'm going to save it again as camera 2. All right. So that last file you'll be able to catch up with how we got to here. And then from here we'll move forward. So I'm going to bring in a new camera. It's a layer. New camera. But I like shortcuts. Command Option C Shift. And now what I want to do is I want to look at we're going to stay with one node just real quick, because what I would love for you to see is the depth of field without having to have too many other parameters going on here. So I'm going to enable depth of field, and we'll just hit OK. You can't tell any difference right now. Nothing happens. But if I open up its attributes, so camera options and transform, these are things I'm interested in. I want all of them. So you might have to change your little window arrangement a little bit. I am fortunate enough to have a 4K iMac. Lots of room. So there's my animation going on with the clouds. Okay. That makes us feel like there's a little bit of depth. There's layering. Clouds are moving at different rates. Fine. But this camera has its position that we talked about, the rotation we didn't talk about, but we'll get there here in a little bit. But then it has zoom. I think zoom is something for us important to understand. That is, it's a zoom. You don't get any parallax. You don't get any understanding of what that spatial relationship is between all of our options or all of our objects in this thing. It's just a zoom. It's like zooming in. And if you've ever had a cinematography class, guarantee your instructor said, don't zoom in, move in. Get closer. Don't just use that lens to zoom in. Get into it. Otherwise, it's going to look like a soap opera or something like that. But what it does to our observer's eye is that it keeps everything flat. So you lose any effort that you might have put into creating a space. So zoom is bogus. Just don't even look at it. Pretend it doesn't exist. Depth of field. Turn it on. And then let's have a look at what depth of field means. So the depth of field means that our lens will focus on something if you want it to. So the focus distance by default is where the camera is at its position. But as I increase that focus distance background, you can see over here that it's going further and further and further. And what I would like to do is I'd like to say focus on the boat. And I'm pretty sure that's the boat. How do I know? I can go click on the boat layer. Yeah, and it shows it to me in this secondary orthographic window. So now I say, okay, all right, there's the boat. So my depth of field, I want its distance to be right where the boat is. I want it to be like spot on. But what we see in this little preview has not changed. That's because we haven't played with the aperture, which is how much light we're letting into the lens, which obviously this is digital, so it's like fake, but the higher the aperture means that the more your camera is going to start to want to focus on what that focal distance is, right? So if I increase my aperture tremendously, and I'm just holding down shift and going like super cranked, everything in the background is blurred out, everything in the foreground is blurred out. The only thing we see because of that aperture and the focal distance is anything that's in that little area of that focal distance. So this is like totally extreme. I would back down significantly. Come on. Not a lot of room. But like, I don't know. This is starting to feel a little believable. Might be a little too much. So I might take it down even a little bit. Just a little bit. But this is when, I'm going to pick it back up. This is when the fun stuff really starts to happen. So if I was just to like render this out, you can see that foreground clouds are super blurry. This is also at third resolution, so it kind of looks like garbage, but there's that. Everything feels like I'm using some telescopic lenses, and I'm getting in there. But you can change that over time. So that focus distance, if I were to keyframe that and say, I would like you to be even closer to me, like on the ground up here, and after 5 seconds, I want you to move past the ground, cross the water, see the boat, and maybe like look at, no, I guess I have to reference those elements on the other piece too, at the mountains in the background. Then not only do I get like the motion from the clouds, but I get a camera that is exploring the land and seeing, yeah, there's the boat. And then as we look past the boat, we get to the mountainside, and over there is a young Muppet in distress, and the boat must turn around and go find it. Right? So, like, that's cool. And this is stuff you can't do with just with a null object. This is the power of the camera. The camera is finally our friend. We are starting to use it to our advantage to help lead our eye through spaces, to help tell that story that we're talking about. I wish my screen was my camera, because it would feel like that I'm looking at you all the time. But instead, I have to go up here every once in a while and be like, hey, and this is what, because I'm looking at my work. This is the way to navigate and create that experience that our viewers need in order for us to give that living moment to the audience. And it is sometimes just as easy as putting that camera's focal distance through a scene that didn't take too long to set up. I mean, it's beautiful. I'm already like getting goosebumps over something that I've done so many times. But it's so great. It's so great. So that's like the benefits of the camera at its most essential state. What we're going to do next is we're going to look at a 2-node camera and start talking about its other attributes, which gets a little heavy but can be pretty awesome at the same time. But it should start to open up a pretty good understanding of what the camera is, how it pertains to our space, how it records our space and delivers that to our canvas and to our viewers. Okay.